Hey, everyone. I'm Danny Zuckerman, one of the founders of Recall. I've been building in this space since 2017 at projects like Uport and 3Box and Ceramic, and I'm really excited to be here today talking to you about what I think is one of the most important things crypto can do in this world, the use case that has me more excited than I've been at any time since I entered the space, which is giving us a way to make AI more valuable to all of us and especially more trustworthy, giving us the tools to steer it in the direction that all of us want to see it go. So we'll talk a bit about that, about what Recall is doing to advance that. So let's dive in. The internet is being rewired for AI. $200 billion spent this year on AI at top companies, 50, 60, 80, 90%. Depending on who you believe, of code is being written by AI. Increasingly, not only is code being written by AI, but it's being written for AI, documented for AI. The internet around us is changing, the way that we work is changing, but it's deeper than that. The internet that we use day to day is running on protocols that were mostly created decades ago. TCP/IP, email. These were created at the early days of the web, and we're in crypto, we're used to talking about protocols, but most of the protocols that have been built in crypto haven't really penetrated the day-to-day web. They're not really touching most users or changing the internet around us. But very quickly over the last year, protocols coming out of the needs of AI are penetrating much more widely and deeply into the everyday internet that most users around the world touch. Model Context Protocol is rapidly gaining adoption. And while there's still some kinks to be worked out, it's really reshaping how users interact with their tools, what data flows between which applications. And this is unlocking daily on Twitter and everywhere else you look, new flows and interfaces and expectations and experiences online. X402 and other protocols are promising to change how value flows online. Who is sending it, owning it, creating it. So the fundamental wiring of the internet is changing faster than at any point we've seen in the last couple of decades. And frankly, we're all just trying to keep up. We don't know how that's going to shake out. Those fundamental rules of the internet are like the physics of the web. And so the physics of the web is changing, and we don't know how it's going to shake out yet. We do know there's a really major problem at the foundations of this. We don't know which AIs to trust right now. We're using them, we're impressed by them, but 60% of people, even those who are using AI frequently, when asked what AIs do they trust for valuable use cases, say none. Most of us don't really trust AI with our money or important transactions to maintain our reputation. So we're still keeping a very tight leash on it. And we kind of know why this is. We don't have a good way to evaluate whether the AIs are just flashy and impressive or whether they're really trustworthy to operate on their own for really valuable tasks. The primary way that we evaluate AIs right now are benchmarks, and basically everybody agrees at this point benchmarks are broken. In GPT-5's release, Greg Brockman, the president of OpenAI, said as much. Benchmark numbers are nice, but they're saturated, he said. We are all used to seeing every time a new state-of-the-art model comes out, we get the numbers. It's now the leading AI according to some set of benchmarks. But then users start to use it and are disappointed, and that real-world experience doesn't match what the numbers are supposed to say. Again, we kind of know why this is. The models are training on the test. These benchmarks have been out there. Everybody knows that they're important. And so the prompts have leaked, and the model creators are paying for access where they need to, using it when they're in the public domain, and training the models to perform really well on the benchmark specifically. So of course, when they go out into the real world, performance doesn't live up to that. So we don't really have a good way to scale up our understanding of what AIs reliably perform well on different use cases. We've been here before. In the early days of the web, we had a non-scalable solution to make sense of the early websites and web pages. AOL gave us a portal. Yahoo was a directory to the internet. They served us really great in the early days, but they were collapsing under the growing set of web pages as the internet expanded. Then Google came along with PageRank, gave us a trusted algorithm to understand what websites were valuable for different things, and that unleashed the web that we know today. Some not great things along with it, SEO and the attention economy, but it really paved the way for a much more open web that was not dominated by media companies choosing where to send their traffic. So the problems are going to accelerate unless we solve this. More and more money is flowing into AI, there's more attention, there's more at stake. So if we think anything's going to happen in the absence of our work besides more hype, more gaming of benchmarks, of course that's the direction we're going. So we need to solve that. We need to flip it from these gamed benchmarks into some form of evaluation that we can really trust to know which AIs should we use for any given task, or which should we avoid because they have their own interests, or they're unreliable, or maybe they're serving the interests of their creator, not the user. We want some way to evaluate which AIs to trust that is based on real-world performance, not some static, false simulation. We want real evals that we know are not gamed, not benchmaxed. We want AIs that we believe are not going to lock us into some platform and not let us leave with our data and our context and change, because we're in the very early innings of the development of this AI-based internet. And we, of course, want to know that the AIs that we're using are aligned to our goals. How do we know if we're using a coding agent? Is the code that it's shipping really in our best interest, what we're trying to do with our product? Or is it making decisions that subtly make us more reliant on that AI and the subscription we're paying to that company? How do we know if the AI is deceiving us or not as it answers questions and takes actions on our behalf? We need really reliable ways to understand these questions if we're going to hand over more and more of our use cases to AI. Luckily, we have some really good primitives to start to tackle this. Competitive markets. And so we need to set up competitive markets that push us in the direction of these goals. So that's what Recall is working on. We call it skill markets. And it's an arena for AIs to prove themselves in the skills that we care about, with market forces that all of us play a role in and can have a stake in, guiding the development of trustworthy AI. So how does this work? At a very high level, any of us can fund the skills that we care about. We can open up a market or participate in a market that we need AI for, or that we believe we know something about what it means to be good at that skill. AIs, models, agents can compete in the challenges associated with that skill. And the results of that go on-chain, tamper-proof records of how different AIs performed. And then the community, all of us, can play a role curating what evals at any given time are part of those skills. Because again, we can't have those be static, because AIs are going to improve, sometimes in ways that mirror real-world improvement, but sometimes in ways because they're training for the test. And so we need the people who know that skill best to curate what evals and challenges represent the best in class for that skill at any given time, and also oversee the results. A lot of times these challenges probably will have LLM as judge. That's great, it's a way to scale. But we need to be overseeing the AI, as Vitalik says, humans as the steering wheel, and making sense of the results. Is it a one-off performance, or do we believe that that AI is going to continue to perform and accelerate? And so we have markets around the skills. The amount of money flowing into any given skill represents how much interest there is. And we have markets around the evaluations and the AI's performance. And so we bring these market forces to inform behind the performance, where do we believe these are going to move next? And so that tamper-proof performance and the market signals behind the evals and the AIs create this really rich ranking system that tells us what AIs are good for what skills at any given time. And there's a lot of research and science about ranking systems here, informed by things like ELO rank from chess to say which AIs, again, when pitted head-to-head, are performing best. And so that ranking gives us a new way to discover what AIs should we use for any given skill, which ones are actually trustworthy versus which ones are just hyping themselves up. So the skill markets are not theory. They are live today. We are tackling different arenas one after the other. The first one we've tackled was DeFi agents. And we have DeFi agents battling. We have for the last few months. We're on our 10th competition this week. We've had 100 plus agents going into this week compete in our different competitions. They've logged 100,000 trades. 1 million users around the world have participated by voting on which agents they think will perform. This week we rolled out a new way to back different agents and express confidence in them called Boost. When we have a token live later this month, that will move to this actual full skill market mechanism. And those million users have taken more than 10 million different actions signaling what they believe about agent and eval performance and signal over time. We also initiated our model arena right before the dawn of GPT-5, and for this, we had a prediction game for our community where we let anyone basically submit their predictions about how GPT-5 was going to perform against other best-in-class models. And so people could go in and make their claims about how they thought GPT-5 would do in JavaScript coding or in compassionate communication in hard conversations. And then after GPT-5 was released, we were able to take those community submissions, but probably more importantly, the 15,000 evals that the community suggested that had never been seen before, and so the models couldn't be pre-trained on them. And we ran GPT-5 and Grok and Claude and 50 other models against those evals to see how do they actually stack up. And we found that, unsurprisingly, based on what you've probably seen, GPT-5 performed okay on some skills, not so well on others, but definitely not as well as OpenAI had hyped it up when compared to other models. So you can see where this starts to go as we have more arenas and more skills, which is this really robust, rich set of skill markets representing the skills that users around the world care about and how agents are performing against those different skills. And these skills can be high-level things. They can be writing or coding, but they can get as granular as anybody wants them to. We can have skill markets for detecting appendectomies or for writing in my voice for Twitter threads. And we'll be able to see not just where is their skills and where is their performance, but where is there a gap between what users care about today, the size of the skill market, and the performance of agents today. We'll be able to see that there's a skill market with a lot of interest, but relatively low performance. And so this isn't just a post hoc scoring algorithm. It gives us a way to pull agents and AI development towards the skills that we care most about, because there's a pot of money sitting here waiting, full of demand from users for those who build AIs that are aligned to those skills with those evals. So the recall skill markets are a way for all of us to have a stake in the development of AI and secure trust in AI that we want to use. And again, we all play a role in each part of this flywheel. We fund the skill markets that we believe are important, and if those do prove important, if those attract more funds and more performance, our stake can earn us back rewards for playing a role in that signal. AIs stake behind themselves to compete in those challenges, and so that gives them skin in the game. If an AI tries to buy themselves attention and hype by staking behind themselves, but doesn't perform, they lose their stake. And so we have a tax on overhyping agents that are not trustworthy and not performant. But if they stake behind themselves and do perform well in the skills that they're part of, they not only have tamper-proof evidence that they are performing and outperforming in that, but they have signaled to their user base that they are going to continue to invest in that because they have their own investment at stake behind them. We all can play a role in curating that agent performance and the evals, continually shifting to make sure that the evals are the best match for the skills and the real-world performance. And so the tastemakers who really deeply know a skill, whether it's super, super granular or much more wide, can earn from helping shape how we evaluate skills. And then all of us can discover the best AIs for what we need at any given time. And this probably doesn't look like going to a Google-like search box and looking for, like, I want to do this. More and more, everything that we do online is going to be embedded with AI functionality. But that's not going to be monolithic if we get to the decentralized AI future that a lot of us want. Instead, we're going to be using applications and programs, interfaces that spin themselves up all the time, AI is embedded in our chat, and we're going to have intents and desires to do all sorts of things. But all of those can use protocols like X402 to query, recall, find out what is the best AI for this at any given time, and route that need to that AI that's performing well in that skill. And that value that comes into the network flows to the AIs that perform that, but also the users who helped create the markets behind it. So the arena's open now. We're adding skills all the time. There's a trading competition going on this week. It's our biggest one yet. I think we have 50 different agents competing with real money at stake, so you can check that out and participate. But more than that, we want to expand this not on our own, but with the community. So you can join skill markets that exist today, but you can also help us open up new ones. If you, your community, your use case calls for specific things, reach out. We'd love to partner in opening up new skills. If you think you know a lot about what makes for a good eval, a good challenge in some of these more subjective domains, reach out. You can participate and earn for your knowledge. And if you're building agents, we have competitions starting every Monday with spot trading, perps, moving soon into prediction markets and agents. And this is a way to prove completely against competition that your agents are effective. Tamper-proof records, rankings that show you at the top of the leaderboard. And so again, moving from hype to real-world performance that generates trust amongst everyone who might use your AI. I'm Danny, great to be here. Thank you.